Hi everyone, thank you. I can see you all coming in, that's great. We are 1 minute to our starting time, so we will start then. Just let a few more of you come on in. Okay, we are 1 o'clock. So just want to say a big hello to everyone and thank you very much for tuning into this week's Webinar Wednesday. Haven't seen you guys in a little while. We had a break for the summer, but we are delighted to be back with a great webinar for you. So if anyone doesn't know me, my name is Stephanie Fox from the Network One, and I'll be moderating today. We've also got Julian and Helen from the team who are on the call, and they're available to help as well. Tiny bit of housekeeping. We'll have a 5-minute intro, a 35-minute presentation, about 15 minutes Q&A, and the main session will be finished by 2 o'clock London time. If you've got any questions for Patrick, please send them by clicking Q&A at the bottom of the page. Then just type your questions and we'll address them after the presentation. We're also recording the webinar right now, and we'll send it to you afterwards. So no need to take notes if you don't want to. So thank you so much. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Patrick Collister. Patrick is an ex-Ogilvy ECD with 30 plus years of creative director experience. He's also custodian of the Caples Awards and founder of Creative Matters. Today, Patrick will be providing a deep dive analysis of Cannes Lion 2023. So without further ado, I will now turn over to Patrick Collister.
Oh. Seem to be on the wrong slide here. Oops. Hang on a second. Share. Yippee! How's that? Hey, very good. Well, hello out there, the Network One. I'm just going to kick straight into all of this because I think the last time I looked, I've got about 108 slides. So, Stephanie, as soon as you think it's time for me to stop at a Q&A to start, please butt in, will you? Because as is always my want, I've put too much in here. So the first thing to say is, in the interest of transparency, I do own and run an awards show myself called the Caples. I don't see us as rivals to Cannes at all. We're about 6 weeks ahead of Cannes in the calendar, and we're a lot smaller. But it does mean that occasionally you will hear a kind of a hint of bitterness and jealousy, I think, because Cannes is astonishing, as I will show you. So, for example, the Caples Awards, which I own, does not get a write-up in Yacht Charter Fleet online every month. So there's big excitement. Just before coming onto this Zoom, I did actually go to yachtcharter.com to have a look, and they're already getting really excited about Cannes Lions 2024, where you can hire your boat. I don't know, Julian, if you had a boat this year, but I see that actually a decent-sized yacht will set you back a mere $750,000. But there you go. And there are plenty of people who go to the festival who are able to afford that kind of money. Of course, what we're going to be talking about today is through my particular lens as a creative director. And so I'm going to be looking at Cannes Lions as an international festival of advertising. And of course, we sometimes forget that it's an international festival of creativity, but this is the Boston Consultancy Group's report on Cannes Lions. And I have to say, I don't know how many people down in the south of France this year were talking about strategic pricing and precision marketing. But I certainly didn't come across too many. Nevertheless, that is their particular angle on it. I find it amazing the number of banks as well as the consultancies who now make it an annual fixture to be down there. But of course, it's because ad tech, martech startups are there, clients are there, and so everyone is talking about investment of one sort or another. For me, of course, Cannes is a bubble, and I just found it absolutely amazing that this is the Bubble House, and it is in Cannes. It's owned by Pierre Cardin, and it was up for sale just before And so everything that I talk about and the work I'm about to show you, do bear in mind that it bears about as much relation to real life as this house does to a real place to live in. So let's have a look at it. There were 32 Grand Prix this year. And incidentally, Stephanie's got links to, first of all, a deck with all of the Grand Prix, all of the videos in it. She's got a link to the 20 most awarded campaigns at Cannes this year as well. And she has a link to this deck I'm sharing with you now. So anyway, this year there were 32 Grand Prix, and basically this is what they look like. Now, this is what they looked like a year ago when I color coded them. So red is a campaign that has something to do with gender. Blue is to do with, I suppose, just purpose, being good, doing good. Green, of course, is environmental concerns. Black is BLM. And white is when there is just a commercial purpose, clear commercial intent. And as you can see, last year, there were only 4 campaigns with a clear commercial intent to them. And this year, whoa, that has raised itself. No BLM, no gender among the Grand Prix. Perhaps juries getting tired of those particular issues, but there's still plenty of green there. And of course, blue, which is just about doing good and not necessarily corporate social responsibility, but brands actually trying to exercise some kind of purpose. So that's how many Grand Prix there were. And the winners' work looks a bit like this. So Adam and Eve DDB with Calm was the single most awarded piece of work, a marvelous piece of work from Gut in Buenos Aires. Number 2, as I say, I'm not going to go through all of these because they exist in a separate deck for you. But what I did want to say is that the single most entered piece of work here is 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth, number 4 of the winningest campaigns. And it was a campaign from FCB Chicago, which they called Dreamcaster for Michelob. And what this was is an incredible tour de force of tech. Essentially, that guy you can see in the picture there is blind and wearing a kind of haptic clothing that was sensitive to what was happening on a basketball court. He was able to commentate live on TV a game that was being played out in front of him. Now, how you do that, I have no idea. I'm going to talk about AI a bit in a moment. That was the most entered piece of work, and it was entered no fewer than 38 times. Now, the thing about entering Cannes, and this is where my bitterness and jealousy comes in, entering Cannes is at least $1,000 now. They have an early bird price. And of course, most creative directors leave it to the last possible moment when actually you're spending at least 1,200 euros. So I was trying to work out that FCB had a cost per gold of all of their entries of 19,000 euros because they had 2 golds from 38 entries. 19 of their entries weren't even shortlisted of those 38. So Miami Gut was actually the agency of the year. And I don't know if they're a part of the Network One, but they're founded by Anselmo Ramos, who I used to know, an independent agency doing startlingly good work around the world. And they had the lowest cost per gold with their World Cup delivery campaign of just 3,200 euros. But anyway, putting aside the fact that the Caples Awards is free to enter, and so we don't have that kind of money, I'd like to talk a little bit about what didn't win, because most of you out there, especially the creative people, will know what did win and why it won, and you will have taken an interest in that. So what didn't win? Well, the first thing that didn't win really was The Real World. I'm going to show you a couple of things that did win awards, but actually it's the absence of any other winners that I think is really, really telling. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a campaign that came from a PR agency called Ketchum. And in The Real World, we have a cost of living crisis. And hardly any brands actually took that into account. But here's Iceland, a UK retailer, doing something really rather magnificent.
In 2022, the cost of food soared 17.6% in the UK due to record inflation. 22% of households now report skipping meals, going hungry, or not eating for an entire day.
I actually visited a food bank because I was struggling and I didn't know where to turn. There were quite a lot of people there, which just shows the scale of the problem.
Circumstances like Imogen's forced 1.1 million people to turn to loan sharks to afford basic needs. But as most lenders were closing their doors, a supermarket opened theirs. Iceland Foods became the first to offer ethical credit, 100% interest-free microloans for food to help the most vulnerable.
Affordable microloans that are very time limited and small amounts, anything from 25 up to 75 pounds, and there's no interest. We will pay the interest.
So there we go. I mean, if a brand is looking for purpose, there it is. It's actually practical help for people who are struggling. This was, again, another idea, harnessing technology, actually. I thought this was really interesting. This is the inflation cookbook. And what happens is it's looking at grocery prices and it's predicting how prices will increase or decrease. So, for example, in the UK at the moment, there have been some decreasing prices of certain vegetables. So all of these were electronically captured by AI, and then recipes using cheaper foodstuffs provided to people. Other than those two campaigns, I've got to tell you, I couldn't really find anything that I think was enormously relevant to a world in which we're all struggling, at least some of us are. The other thing that was missing from Cannes this year, and I have to say I'm a bit of a soppy old git for direct mail. I used to absolutely love mail for what it was, but there's no DM at all at Cannes this year, nothing even shortlisted, though direct mail did turn up in other categories. So for example, this is a really interesting calendar, a 257-year calendar from PNC Bank in America, and it's 257 years because that is when the gender gap will finally be narrowed. So when I showed you all of the Cannes Grand Prix winners, there were no, in 2023, no red gender Grand Prix winners, but there's still plenty of advertising out there because the problem still exists. So it won't be for 257 years that the gender gap absolutely comes together. And so this calendar was sent out to people and to employees and to workers to try and expedite, make this a kind of a more rapid closure of the gap. This was, I mean, 67%, according to the research, 67% of CEOs are too busy concentrating on their businesses to be able to take an interest in the news and in what's happening in the world out there. And what's happening is that climate change is damaging our future. And so the idea that this Brazilian agency had working with the United Nations was to create a fictitious company called EART4 Earth and to do an IPO. So the way you do a flotation is to create a few notifications of this and then a booklet describing all of the brand assets. In this particular flotation, of course, the brand assets are deeply damaged. And so that's how they set out to try and reach CEOs. This also was the IKEA catalogue. I don't know if you know, but IKEA name a lot of their furniture after, with people's names, as well as the names of villages in Sweden and Norway. Anyway, last year, instead of saying Almat BBDO United Nations, which is wrong, it should say IKEA, the name catalogue, and it's Forsman and Bodenfors. So you're a young family, you're a young couple, one of you falls pregnant. What are you going to call your baby? Well, IKEA have a catalogue specially for you. I don't know if I want to name any of my children after a bookcase, but there you go. That's me. What else is missing from Cannes Grand Prix this year, for Cannes generally, actually, is the metaverse. And this time last year, when Julian and Stephanie very kindly invited me to talk about Cannes 2022, I predicted wrongly, that the metaverse was going to be huge. And I was really excited by this particular campaign, which is when the Australian Open tennis tournament basically had to be played behind locked doors because they went into another COVID lockdown. What they did is they created the Melbourne tennis centre entirely in Decentraland. And that's where it was played out. So spectators could go in there and watch the live event happening, but in Decentraland. And at the same time, NFTs were created and sold, representing every tiny little 3-inch by 3-inch square on the tennis court there. So whenever a ball landed on your square that you owned, because you could buy these NFTs for $215, and they sold out in 3 minutes instantly, then you got a notification. I thought this was absolutely amazing, the blurring of boundaries between reality and the digital world. Anyway, this year there was absolutely nothing, except maybe this, which did win the Titanium Grand Prix. An absolutely astonishing campaign, really. Tuvalu is an island in the Pacific, which is basically sinking. And so they are recreating it faithfully in the metaverse. And the reason for this isn't just a stunt, but actually, if and when Tuvalu does disappear, it will now have a real existence within the United Nations. So even though it's disappeared, it will still continue to exist as a nation, which in a way is rather marvelous, but it's also a kind of tragic demonstration, really, of what's happening as a result of climate change. As I say, that won the Titanium Grand Prix. So I suppose that was the most important piece of work in the entire festival. There was only one other example of the metaverse I could see, which this got a silver. It's a rather strange and exotic piece of work here.
The legacy of tomorrow is a visionary, immersive experience. Created with the Unreal Game Engine, this experience features high-resolution pixel streaming, ensuring seamless gameplay and an outstanding amount of details of the garments.
Rather amazing, actually. The fourth thing that was missing, that didn't win at Cannes this year, is Gen AI. Now, I mean, the fascinating thing about Gen AI is, of course, everyone's talking about it, and everyone was talking about it in late June on the Croisette and elsewhere. You know, because as a result of ChatGPT, and now we're getting familiar with DALL-E 4, we've got Midjourney, we've got Adobe Firefly. Of course, what's happening is that Gen AI is beginning to transform advertising. What I found really fascinating about Cannes this year is that anything that used Gen AI overtly won nothing at all. And maybe it's because, a bit like this, art directors, jurors, creative people thought that they were turkeys voting for Christmas. Now, this is a poster created and put up in London by an art director called Paul Pateman at his own expense. But a creative using AI is like a turkey voting for Christmas. And so perhaps that's why some really genuinely interesting work won nothing. So, for example, this is an organization called True Patriot in Canada, and what it exists to do is to support war veterans, army veterans, when they come back as they get old. And what they did rather magnificently was to find letters written home by Canadian soldiers during the First World War and the Second World War and the Korean War. And they got Midjourney to illustrate those letters. So they used as prompt whatever it was that was written home, and that then became the inspiration for Gen AI or Midjourney to create these rather startling images. And they're very dreamlike, and they create a different kind of reality of war. I mean, so for example, a few months ago, of course, Midjourney doesn't complete things. You've got these beds, you've got this floor sort of hanging in space, but actually it's a really compelling piece of communication because it's Gen AI, because it's not entirely right. Here's a third one, again, a soldier writing home from the trenches in World War One, and there's that kind of very mystic dreaminess. Anyway, what did it win? It actually won Sweet FA. And this also was another one. This was an agency in Berlin, the Robert Capa Museum. Now, Robert Capa is a Hungarian photographer, and he was a war photographer. So during the Second World War and immediately afterwards, again, the Korean War, he took some of the most famous war photographs ever. And when I show them to you, you'll recognize them. So what they tried to do to show that actually the photographer's vision has a purity and an integrity that simply cannot be replicated by technology, they fed in as a prompt to Midjourney what you can see in a famous Robert Capa photograph. So here on the left is an American GI arresting a German soldier at the Battle of the Bulge, made famous by the film, of course. But I mean, when you look at the photograph, you know, the fear, the apprehension in the German's face, again, the slightly the diffidence of the American and all the rest of it. And so the prompt, a soldier in a snowy field pointing a pistol at another soldier, you know, in AI suddenly becomes this weird and very discombobulating image. Similarly, on the left here is a photograph of a woman who had had a baby by a German soldier being pilloried in Rouen. And that photograph then in AI becomes deeply disturbing and spooky, but it's lost all of the artistry. It's lost the veracity of the original. That didn't even get shortlisted. Meanwhile, here's Rethinking Toronto doing a campaign for Heinz, and they just asked AI to recreate tomato ketchup. And of course, the AI created Heinz ketchup almost every time with that famous tombstone label. That got nothing. Now, the only campaigns using Gen AI that did win awards were campaigns in which it was made out to be villainous and hideous and horrible and destructive, and it was going to take all of our jobs away and everything else.
What you have is not a threat to our elections, but a threat to our republic, a constitutional crisis unlike we have ever faced in the modern history of this country.
You could have a deep fake that, if timed just right, could lead to a riot.
Is there a way to tell when it's fake from reality?
The short answer is not really.
Usually humans can.
So there's Intel using AI in order to be able to scan video material to see if it's been created by AI. Which again, of course, is what's happening. An awful lot of teachers are now having to use ChatGPT to see if their students have been writing their essays using ChatGPT. And what we've got at the moment, of course, is a lot of governments getting extremely worried about what's happening on X, what's happening in social media as a result of the Israel-Palestine flare-up. And so I guess fake news is again a big issue. Here at Cannes back in June, the prompt here was hilarious. The prompt was Boris Johnson at an LGBTQ gathering in London. The bit I find absolutely incredible about this is the photographic detail. Part of the prompt was to say hot paparazzi picture, f1.8 75 millimeter lenses, film grain, you know, and 16:9. I mean, honestly, incredible the detail. But of course, we know that's a fake, and that won a bronze, by the way. Here's Nikon. They sell cameras, and of course, rather than having images created now digitally, they still want people to buy their cameras, showing incredible photographs of the natural world, with the thought there, don't give up on the real world, which is as strange and curious as anything that Midjourney might give you. For me, though, at Cannes this year, there was a real moment of revelation when Mark Reed, the chairman of CEO of WPP, interviewed Jensen Huang here. And Jensen Huang is the man behind NVIDIA, now the sixth largest company in the world. And of course, they are responsible for the chips that have made the AI revolution possible. And one of the things that Jensen did was talk about AI in the plural. Now, most of the rest of us, hide our ignorance behind AI as a singular thing. But of course, he talks about them as AIs, plural. And the moment he said that, I thought, oh my God, that's so obvious. There are different kinds of AIs. There are literally hundreds. There are thousands of different forms of artificial intelligence. And in fact, over 2,000 of the submissions to Cannes Lions this year used AI to some degree or another. And of course, these are fine. These win awards because the AI itself is invisible. The moment Gen AI is put in front of jurors, then they kind of walk away from it terrified. But when you see it in campaigns, and among the top 20 winningest campaigns, that 50% of them are using AI to some degree or another, then you begin to realize that actually the genie is well out of the bottle, and it's actually been out of the bottle for years. So you get things like this, the Grand Prix in creative effectiveness. This was Cadbury's in India, Ogilvy, India. And so that's Shah Rukh Khan, they say probably the most popular actor in the world. And using AI, he appeared in hundreds of individual ads for thousands of mom and pop shops, as they call them, tiny little dukas around India. You could get through Cadbury an ad for your little store featuring him. And every one of those ads unique because of the slicing and the dicing that is now possible with AI. Absolutely genius piece. Again, looking elsewhere, this only got a silver actually, but here, if you're talking about brand purpose and how brands actually can align themselves with their producers' best interests in the best interests of their customers, then you get things like this. I thought this was just so fascinating.
A platform that uses satellite imagery and remote sensing to build an early warning system. We have trained the AI with data from the last 4 years of over 3,000 hectares.
So that's so what Lays have done is taken 4 years worth of farming data in India. And all of this can be personalized to the individual's farm. And they're provided with data to help them seed, to plant, to harvest. It gives them analysis of rainfall. And so absolutely bespoke to their own producers. So, but then there are things like this. And again, this is the application of AI in ways that make life so much better for people. In particular, people suffering from stroke. What happens, of course, is that you are asked by the medical people now, as a result of stroke, to exercise your face. But of course, a lot of people feel really stupid about that. And so this is a demonstration of oh, no, it's missing. And so they created an app with image recognition technology. And the only way you can scroll through your social media is by making faces at the camera inside your phone. And then that will allow you to scroll through Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is that you're on at that moment. And other facial gestures then allow you to swipe left and swipe right. And that way, people who've suffered from stroke get the necessary exercise that they need to take. People don't do it, apparently. They just don't like doing it. And this is a way of forcing them to do it. While I'm on the subject of AI, I thought it was worth saying that quite a lot of people talked about it. I was fascinated by Dave Droga, who is now the CEO of Accenture in North America. And Accenture have created an AI division, and that is creating 80,000 new jobs. So it may well be true that plenty of jobs in our industry are going to be going, but there are plenty of new jobs coming. In the middle, again, Will I Am there, who is such a smart guy, was talking about the fact that he's just set up an AI lab and again, creating jobs there. And on the right, that's Scott Galloway, who turns up at Cannes regularly. And Scott Galloway, in a talk he gave this year, said that there are already at least half a dozen unicorn businesses using AI that we don't know about, but they were there at Cannes in their infancy. So AI is going to change what we do and how we do it. And at the moment, I have to say that creative people are by and large extremely enthusiastic. So the Caples Awards ran a webinar about a month ago, and I do urge you to go to YouTube to look at the two short videos. One of them, the Caples Awards YouTube channel, features Lars Bastholm. And Lars Bastholm is a writer, and he cannot draw to save his life. And yet in Mid-Journey, Lars has written this and created this book. It's an A to Z of animals he's created. This is Letitia the lemur. Now, on the left, all of those images have been created by a guy who can't draw. All of those were created by using a prompt into Mid-Journey prompts. So Lars Bastholm talking about Gen AI is really, really interesting, and I urge you to have a look at it. And similarly, there's a Caples Awards video with Matt Batten. Here, this is Matt getting, in the style of Fritz Lang and Metropolis, Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman redrawn in that kind of 1920s heroic style. So, I mean, Gen AI is absolutely amazing, and there are creative people out there beginning to do fascinating things with it, even though it didn't win any awards at Cannes this year. One of the other things that didn't win awards at Cannes this year was Ryan Reynolds. And I'm really interested in this because Ryan Reynolds, of course, he's a Hollywood actor, but he's also the founder of an agency called Maximum Effort. And Maximum Effort exists in Toronto. And it exists in order to be able to create advertising that in the early days, he wrote himself. He doesn't any longer. So Aviation Gin, for example, this is a commercial that Ryan Reynolds produced 4 years ago.
You know, people come up to me all the time and they say, what makes aviation gin so delicious? Most of the time I run away because non-celebrities frighten me. But here is the answer. It begins each morning at 4 a.m. The distillers of Aviation American Gin rise to greet the new day with 4 hours of silent meditation. From there, it's a quick scoot down to the grove. The citrus fruits are misted using only the tears of aviation's owner, me.
Now that makes me laugh. I mean, there are a whole load of things about that. So Ryan Reynolds, I mean, it's great being the copywriter on your own brand because you can buy your own work without, people worrying about it. And so for the last 4 years, Ryan Reynolds has been writing ads for Aviation Gin, or his team have been writing them more recently. And as a result of that, a year ago, he was able to sell Aviation Gin to Diageo for 610 million. So here's somebody who understands what it is to grow a brand, not just to grow a brand, but to grow a brand through creative advertising, through advertising that is warm and funny and charming. So not only Aviation Gin, he then turned his attention to Mint Mobile and bought a share in that. It's a telco in America. Here's one of his ads from 18 months ago.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds, owner of Mint Mobile. We're always looking for ways to save you money. So this year, we're kicking things off with an ad that I created using ChatGPT, the AI technology. This is what I asked it to write. I said, write a commercial for Mint Mobile in the voice of Ryan Reynolds. Use a joke, a curse word, and let people know that Mint's holiday promo is still going, even after the big wireless companies have ended theirs. This is what it wrote. Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here. First of all, let me just say Mint Mobile is the shit. But here's the thing. All the big wireless companies out there are ending their holiday promos, but not Mint Mobile. We're keeping the party going because we're just that damn good. Give Mint Mobile a try. And hey, as an added bonus, if you sign up now, you'll get to hear my voice every time you call customer service. Just kidding. That's not really a thing. Stay classy, everyone. That is mildly terrifying, but compelling.
You know, so that's really smart advertising. In addition to which, by the way, in March of this year, Ryan Reynolds managed to net himself 300 million. You know, that's not bad for a few ads. But again, here's a guy who really does understand what it is to build a brand and to use those assets, his natural assets, his brand assets, in order to be able to do interesting things. I mean, this is one of my favorite commercials of the entire
The owner
year.
of Wrexham Football Club. I need to watch out for our players. I've been a star for a long time. These guys have no idea what's coming. Hold. Look, we got a big match coming up, and I know what you're worried about. Cybersecurity. How many of you have heard of 1Password? Really? Okay, well, how many of you have downloaded 1Password? No idea, Wales was so cutting edge. So I guess you know that 1Password completely secures your digital life. I will shove a red card so far up your ass, people will think it's your tongue. Now, let's talk nighttime skincare routines. 1Password. Simplest, smartest, security rear wrist.
Anyway, the thing is that maximum effort, Ryan Reynolds didn't enter anything into Cannes. So, I mean, here's a team of people who are so confident in what they do and how they do it that Cannes doesn't mean anything to them, which, again, I find really, really absolutely fascinating. But it leads me to talk about what did win. And actually, I've just been talking about how Ryan Reynolds understands how you build a brand and how actually humor in advertising, warmth in advertising, personality in advertising is how you do this. And so I was really fascinated to see that this year, brand of the year was Apple. And so I think Apple won 27 awards this year, one sort or another, including this incredible piece of work. What is amazing about that is it's a 30-second TV commercial. Now, I tell you what, a 30-second TV commercial hasn't even been shortlisted in the last 4 years. So for a 30-second TV commercial to turn up and win the Grand Prix in film this year is absolutely amazing. So it seems to signal to me a lot of things, like the jury is beginning to take advertising seriously again, and that brand purpose is beginning to be less important than it was. But one of the reasons I absolutely love everything that Apple have done this year is that they're all demos. They are, if you like, good old-fashioned ads in which there is a product feature shown, described, used by people towards whom we can warm. As I say, the sort of stuff that people like Julian and I were doing in the 90s. And it's back. And not only is it back, this is the biggest brand in the world. You know, the biggest brand by value in the world, maintaining its position. Not by doing anything kind of flash and so forth with technology, but actually by running ads that people can relate to. So I'm going to scoop through these. All of these videos are in the deck and have a look at them later. But I mean, again, this is just a demo, but brilliantly, brilliantly shot. This is a demonstration of what noise-cancelling AirPods feel like. How about this? That you can share AirPods.
No soy mago. ¿Qué te parezco? Mira cómo estos niños aquí quieren ser como yo.
And here, every year, they have a whole series of films called Shot on an iPhone. And last year, The Journey Home, which was shot on an iPhone in China, is just one of my favorite films. Generally, it's 23 minutes long. It's genius. First, this is again about dancing and was shot on an iPhone. So absolutely astonishing stuff. But then even when it comes to things like their sponsorship, so Apple Music sponsored the Super Bowl performance by Rihanna. Even when they're doing something like that, they bring real marketing skill and the power of creative advertising to bear. And one of my favorite ads of the whole year was actually this, featuring a little girl who might be a young Rihanna. And it was shot in Barbados, where Rihanna grew up. And a lot of the people in this particular video are people who knew her when she was a girl. And it's
But you know, it's about time that she got
charming.
back.
It's just
You know?
lovely.
Find space and feel it coming in the air. Can't be scared when it goes down. Gotta be proud and tell me now. Only thing that's on my mind is who's gonna run this town tonight.
Just fantastic. And so one of the reasons why I'm making a big thing about this is because the IPA in the UK has sponsored a couple of books written by the guy on the left there, Peter Field, who, working with another guy at Planner called Les Binet at DDB in London, have written a book called The Long and the Short of It, which is basically about short-termism in marketing, leading to advertising that is all lower funnel and direct. And what they're saying is that there's a terrible danger to brands here, that if you don't invest in long-term brand advertising, then what happens? Your brand withers and dies. You know, and there are some really terrifying statistics out there with Publicis' own research saying that 81% of brands could disappear across Europe and no one would bloody notice. You know, that's what happens if you concentrate on sales rather than actually on what the brand means. So at Cannes this year, Peter Field and Les Binet were there talking about the 70-30 split. And that's what they say is ideal. 70% of your budget, Mr. Marketer, should go on growing the brand and 30% really on direct sales, on lower funnel stuff. On the right there's a guy called Orlando Wood, who's written a book called Lemon and another one called Look Out, which is again about the same thing, short-termism and marketing leading to basically long-term decline. And so here are brands like Apple, like Ryan Reynolds, showing us how it can be done. And of course, in Ryan Reynolds' case, showing us the almost immediate impact of value on those brands. So 610 million for aviation gin, Mint Mobile selling for $1 billion, because it means something to people through the advertising. So essentially, that's what the split is advertised. And actually, in reality, it's probably the other way around. At least 70% of all advertising now is lower funnel, it's direct, it's about brand engagement now, and only 30% of it about long-term brand building. And that is a real problem. Also, I mean, it's a problem because so few brands seem to be doing it. So whenever we get it right in our industry, I really think we should be shouting about it. And here, for me, was one of the great, if you like, comeback stories that I saw at Cannes this year, which was Kraft Heinz. Heinz are back, you know, and so Heinz have got their brand purpose. They say, let's make life delicious. And it was really interesting to see that they won also around 27 awards this year, including this, which was, I think, a gold in creative effectiveness. So we asked people to draw ketchup and they all drew Heinz. That's what happened. They did focus groups in 6 different countries and people automatically drew Heinz ketchup. You know, if you're the brand leader, if you own 70% of the market, that's how you extend your 70% to 75%. You know, you make something of the brand ubiquity. I thought this was absolutely brilliant because this is in many ways a B2B campaign. Even when it isn't Heinz, it has to be Heinz. And so the photograph there shows a guy in a restaurant filling a Heinz bottle with cheap, inferior ketchup. And every single one of us has been to a cafe where we know they've done that. You know, the stuff that comes out of the bottle is stringy and vinegary and horrible. Genius campaign. And similarly, the same idea, but from Turkey. And that's the thing about Heinz this year. I count 7 different agencies won awards across 15 different campaigns. So this was a genius idea, transparent bottles, and there's that little red ring around the green coffin. And that's a Pantone color that should match the color of the ketchup inside the bottle. If it doesn't, then you know you're being served fake. You know, absolutely brilliant. That led to 500 new accounts being opened up in Turkey for Heinz ketchup. This was a guy called Thomas Heinz, and he came from Hamburg, and they sent him off to basically hijack the World Cup, where Heinz were not an official sponsor. So through Instagram, he went wandering around, took lots of photographs, dished out prizes to people, till eventually FIFA caught up with him after 5 days and sent him back. But again, just fun. Elsewhere in social media, an influencer wrote that she really liked her ketchup to come out of the fridge, you know, and so then Heinz persuade Wendy's to do the same for a bit. Again, Super Bowl is always in these Roman numerals. So here's Heinz explaining that the Super Bowl this year was 57, right? And so forth. They're just constantly out there with advertising. This is, and again, so interesting. This is Socco from Sao Paulo. Now, the story behind this is that throughout 2022, all of you who've got tattoos out there know that there was a big scandal about some of the ingredients in tattooing being really damaging to your skin, to your overall health. So, of course, Heinz and ketchup, where the ingredients are absolutely vital, came up with a red tattooing that is absolutely safe because the ingredients are as pure can be. And perhaps one of my favorites, actually, campaigns from Heinz at Cannes this year, which only got a bronze, I think, in social media and PR. But a guy called Elvis Francois survived for over 3 weeks at sea after a storm in his boat, just floating out across the ocean. But he survived on a bottle of ketchup. And so he told the story when he was rescued, but then he disappeared and Heinz couldn't find him to give him a new boat and to say, thank you very much. And so they created this campaign. They put posters up on beaches and to try and track him down, which they did eventually. But I mean, honestly, it was just such a lovely story. And that is really how you get over 2 billion media impressions. Now, the reason I tell you all of this is because when Kraft Heinz merged back in 2016, they made a big thing about cutting back on marketing investment. And in fact, you know, what happened as a result of that is that not only did sales decline by a massive 2%, but the share price went into freefall. And actually, in one day in February 2017, the share price devalued by 30%. So finally, in 2019, Kraft Heinz hired a new CEO who was a marketer by background. And this was a guy who recognized that actually what Heinz really needed to be doing was to be advertising. So, I mean, in Q1 of this year, Heinz have spent more than they spent in the whole of 2017. And the results are a share price that has climbed up and they've been rewarded with sales. And that's one of the interesting things. Advertising bloody works. Sometimes I think as an industry, we hide our light beneath a bushel. And there were examples this year of stuff actually, of advertising campaigns actually selling stuff. Over the last 3 or 4 years, Julian is the same as me. We've both been observing at Cannes that nobody seemed to want actually to sell stuff. They just wanted us to hug trees or feel sorry. But actually, this year there was a shift. So here you've even got someone like Spike Lee saying, we're in the business of selling shit. And actually probably more terrifying or more salient, really, to an audience of marketers was here, Mark Pritchard, the CMO of P&G. And what Mark said is, our company's focus now is on performance. Is the product superior? Does it provide a superior value? Are we reaching as many people as possible for each of their needs? We need to convey performance or benefits. We're going back to the fundamentals. I think in today's world, moving into areas of advocacy that are outside your brand's wheelhouse, that's where things can get undone. So here is a marketer walking away very publicly from what we used to call brand purpose. And at the same time, I don't think it's any accident that the CEO of Unilever, Alan Jope, stepped down from his position in the month before Cannes, at the same time that Connie Brahms, who was also the CMO of Unilever and had staked her career to brand purpose, also stepped down. And of course, there was huge criticism for Unilever from Terry Smith, the investor, saying that actually Unilever should stop trying to talk about brand purpose and should concentrate on selling stuff. And so we saw that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but is it all right if we just have a couple of minutes for Q&A before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'm just going to go through. Here we go. Lots of stuff selling. It was great to see selling. And so, hooray, hurrah, hurrah, and humor. Come on, I'm going to show you a funny ad. All right, Stephanie, give me a
Absolutely,
funny.
yeah, go for it. That's fine.
You know, because humor did make a comeback, and so here we go. I love this ad. Again, it came from Buenos Aires. I didn't think there were too many genuinely funny ads, but this one really is.
995.
Hey, Chris,
996.
what's happening?
Much about to reach 1,000 slides on the new client presentation. 997. 998. Oh, I need to highlight product delivery. Get me an incomprehensible graphic ASAP.
Just for the charts.
999. 1,000. Wait, I didn't save it. Okay, it's it.
Meet the future of digital transformation. Well,
So,
My presentation, I was going to say that Cannes continues to find new ways and new places for us to advertise. I'll give you some examples, but of course, it's also a festival of creativity. So there was some extraordinary things there. You know, things like Wonderman Thompson Lima creating a mouth guard that allows quadriplegics to be able to operate their computer, turning the roof of their mouths into a trackpad for their computers. So you can use your tongue in order to be able to make, I mean, absolutely astonishing. And then things like TBWA in Japan turning clamshells into a material that allows them to make helmets for construction workers, and then a Peruvian beer brand turning all of their bottles into bus shelters. And so anyway, we live in an interesting world. Overall, I felt that Cannes this year was interesting without being a classic year in some ways. And for UK people, a bit like, oh God, what's that festival down in Somerset?
Oh, Oh God.
Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt Cannes was a bit like Glasgow this year. Not a classic, but not uninteresting. And Glasgow had it, you know, Elton John, not exactly cutting edge, but of course we have every year John Hegarty down in Cannes. Bless him. He's marvellous. So's Elton. Anyway, there we go.
Thank you very, very much. All right, we've got time for one very quick question. So someone has said, Apple's humorous ad in is great, but why so few other humorous winners? Do you think that everyone's worried about cancel culture?
System One, who are a research company, say that 52% of all entries to Cannes film this year were light-hearted. I mean, I have to say, one of the reasons why there aren't so many funny films is writing funny is bloody difficult. You have to be a really skilled writer to be able to pull it off. You also, again, I mean, there's another thing about this. You need to be a really confident marketer. And the CMO of Apple has been at Apple for 32 years. Most brands, you know, most companies get rid of their CMO within 3.5 years. So you haven't actually got time to have the confidence to invest in humor, which of course is the most salient, powerful selling tool of all. But then, of course, as you say, you know, people have different ideas about what is and what isn't funny.
Very true. Okay, we've got time for one more question. Thank you for that. So actually it's a question from Julian, and he said, you've mentioned Wunderman Thompson campaign several times. What do you think of the merger with VML YNR?
I'm sure it makes sense to a small coterie of people sitting in an office in New York, but elsewhere in the world, it's going to be a train crash and hundreds of jobs will go. You know, people who are already unhappy are going to be even more miserable. What we're watching is the writhing and twisting and turning of our entire industry as we try to get straight with what is required of us today. And of course, the digital revolution, you know, continues to change expectations of what is creativity.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very true. And hopefully it'll be a little bit more optimistic than that, but we'll see. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a really big thank you for that great webinar, amazing examples, amazing overview of everything. So just thank you so much. That was fab. If you didn't have time to ask Patrick a question, you can email him at patrick@creative-matters.com. And Patrick, if it's okay with you, I will share your slides and the case studies along with the recording. Oh, sorry, I just muted you, sorry. Sorry, do you want to just quickly come off of mute?
Yeah, I just want to say that if anyone wants to see the deck, please do. There's a whole load. You can see all the videos in their entirety, but there's a lot of work towards the end that I didn't get time to share that you might like to look at. Bronzes hidden in the weeds that you won't be familiar with.
All right, great. Well, I will share that with everyone afterwards. I also wanted to say, on the topic of awards, don't forget that the Indie Awards 2023 are now open. They close on the 3rd of November, so not long. So don't delay getting your entries in. And you can find out more and enter at indieawards.global. You can also come to the Indie Summit next year in 2024. I'm really glad to announce that it will be held in London on the 16th and 17th of April 2024. So more info will be coming soon, but mark your diaries for now. So thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Patrick, and have a fantastic day. Thank you again for joining us, and I'll be in touch soon with the recording and the slides. Bye.